The ocean is full of weird, wonderful, and yes, some pretty ugly fish. But did you know that there are many species out there with more than just looks against them? Here are some of the unluckiest fish in the sea. From bad to worst, the fish that just can't win. Being born at the bottom of the food chain isn't ideal. But it gets much worse when your predators aren't even picky about eating you. Take, for instance, the little tunny. This tuna species isn't only small, they're smaller than most of their fellow tunas, reaching a maximum length of only 16 inches. They're also slow growers and late matures. In a world where speed and strength are everything, this fish is a sitting duck, literally. Almost every other marine animal eats them, including sharks, dolphins, turtles, birds, and other fish. It would be easier for them if they were just transparent. At least, then they might blend into the ocean depths and avoid being eaten. But the little tunny has a dark color that makes them stand out like a sore thumb. If you want to be invisible in the ocean, bright colors are definitely not the way to go. For this reason, this little fish has one of the worst lives imaginable. No sooner do they pop out of their eggs than they're hunted down by their natural enemies. And if they manage to survive long enough to become adults, they still don't get a break because fishermen catch them. What's worse is that these tiny tunas have no real use. Humans eat bigger, meatier tuna species, and we don't even feed them to our pets. So this fish's life begins and ends in pain. Trapped in the tide, when people think of fish, they usually imagine them swimming around freely in the open ocean or darting between colorful coral reefs. But in reality, there are many species that live in the intertidal zone, the area of the shoreline that is underwater at high tide and exposed to air at low tide. While this environment may seem beautiful, it's actually extremely harsh and dangerous for fish. To make matters worse, the tide pools formed in these areas tend to be isolated from the rest of the ocean. This means that the fish living inside them are trapped there until the tide returns and connects them once again to the sea. Not only does this limit their range and ability to travel, but it also subjects them to extreme conditions. You see, animals in tide pools are in an enclosed space without any of the protective mechanisms that the ocean provides, such as its vastness and constant motion. As a result, they must deal with changes in temperature, salinity, oxygen levels, and the intensity of light that can all quickly become deadly. One particularly unlucky fish species that has to endure these harsh conditions is the mudskipper. This fish has adapted to living both in water and on land. However, it's primarily a marine creature that needs to stay moist to survive. Therefore, it spends most of its time buried in the mud of the riverbed, only emerging occasionally to hunt for prey. While this lifestyle may work for the mudskipper, it still faces challenges due to its habitat. When the tide goes out, it gets trapped in a shrinking pool of water along with other unlucky fish. During these times, the fish must contend with reduced oxygen levels and increased temperatures, which can stress them out and make them more susceptible to disease and predation. Born to suffer. Even though humans are known for being bad parents, sometimes we still got it pretty easy compared to some fish. Take a look at the blue-ringed octopus. It lays eggs, then promptly dies. Yep, octopuses have it programmed into their DNA to die after they reproduce. After spawning, they basically run on empty and starve to death. No wonder they choose violence as their preferred method of going out. We humans may complain about how hard it is to raise kids, but at least we stick around to see our children grow up. The blue-ringed octopus does not offer anything even close to that kind of parental support. But it's not the only fish parent that gives up after spawning. Many deep-sea creatures exhibit similar behavior. Take the lantern shark, for example. Like the blue-ringed octopus, this fish dies soon after reproduction. It's thought that these creatures simply don't have the energy reserves necessary to care for their young, and therefore resort to dying shortly after spawning. While this may be a good strategy for ensuring that the next generation is strong and healthy, it sure doesn't make life any easier for the poor fish. Their offspring are left on their own to fend for themselves in a dangerous and unforgiving environment. Even if they're lucky enough to survive, they'll probably grow up with serious psychological issues due to lack of proper parenting. But some fish have it so bad that you almost feel sorry for them. Take a look at the frogfish. These weird-looking fish have been given nothing but bad news since the moment they were born. First, their appearance is bizarre. Instead of a normal, streamlined shape, they have bodies that resemble sacs. In addition, they come in a variety of weird colors and patterns. This makes them look very strange indeed. But even if you could get past their looks, their behavior is another matter entirely. Frogfish are notorious for being lazy. They spend most of their time sitting around waiting for prey to swim right up to them. In fact, they don't even bother chasing after their meals. As a result, they have a limited diet consisting only of whatever happens to swim near them. This lack of ambition makes it difficult for them to find food, especially in environments where prey is scarce. On top of all this, frogfish have very few natural enemies. However, there is one creature that finds them extremely delicious: humans. People catch these fish just for fun, or to keep them as pets. Unfortunately, frogfish don't adapt well to captivity and often die soon after being removed from their natural habitat. All things considered, it's not surprising that so many frogfish live short, unhappy lives. The grim reality of being an ugly fish. When it comes to fish, beauty is more than skin deep. A fish's appearance plays a crucial role in its survival, affecting everything from its ability to find food to its chances of avoiding predators. Unfortunately, some fish are just naturally unattractive, and they pay the price for it. The blobfish is a prime example of a fish whose looks have gotten it into trouble. This fish lives deep in the waters off the coast of Australia and New Zealand. It's a member of the Microplastics family, a group of deep-sea fish that are generally quite ugly. The blobfish has a large head and a body that's shaped like a potato. Its eyes are sunken and it has a gaping mouth filled with sharp teeth. In short, it's not exactly what you'd call a looker. But while its looks may be off-putting to us humans, they're actually an advantage for the blobfish in its natural habitat. You see, the blobfish lives at depths of up to 2,000 feet, where the pressure is immense. Its gelatinous, almost translucent flesh helps it to withstand the crushing pressures of the deep sea. However, this same flesh makes it extremely vulnerable when it's brought to the surface. As the pressure decreases, the blobfish's body expands, causing it to look like a melted blob of fat. This not only makes it difficult for the fish to swim, but it also leaves it exposed to potential predators. Despite these challenges, the blobfish has managed to survive for centuries. However, it's unclear whether it will continue to thrive in the face of climate change and other environmental threats. When a pufferfish is born, it thinks it's already an adult, puffed up with air and ready to defend itself from enemies. When it grows up, the young pufferfish finds out it needs to do everything all over again. All this just because it wants to survive. We'll tell you about it now. This is what a baby pufferfish looks like. No spikes, no defense. What's it gonna do when it meets a predator? Our tiny friend will make itself as big as possible, puffing itself up with air. It takes several minutes for a pufferfish to get big, but the result is worth it. Predators don't really want to eat something that looks like a balloon with spines, so the pufferfish defends itself But it's not so simple for a baby. While an adult can swallow a couple liters of water or air, a baby pufferfish can only inflate itself up to 3% of its weight. That's why little pufferfish often fall victim to predators. Nature just doesn't seem to care about their feelings. Do you think a pet would have it better? Definitely not. Just look at how the owners of this fish had fun. With it, they turned it into a pufferball, a living ball for playing. Probably after that, nobody wanted to play with the ball anymore. I guess this is one way to look at it. But here's another. The owner was trying to help his pet stand out among other fishes in the school. To be honest, it worked. Just look how brightly colored the fish is. After all, there's no such thing as too much brightness. But being in the spotlight all the time is quite exhausting, especially if you're this funny fish. Its name is mola mula. Despite its small size, the fish is very active. In the wild, it would have been eaten long ago. That's why now it lives in an aquarium and travels around the world, showing off its beauty. How does it feel about it? Maybe it doesn't mind. After all, mola mula lives surrounded by people who love it and take care of it. Just don't forget to feed it, otherwise it might get hungry. You know, sometimes being a fish isn't easy. For example, you can find yourself in the school of the loneliest fish in the ocean. Yep, we're talking about the mola mola. No, it's not some kind of a club. Mola mola is simply the scientific name for a type of fish. And this fish is considered the most lonely in the world. The fact is that the mola mula never forms pairs. Males don't need females to produce offspring. They can do without them. Sometimes you can see how male mola mula take care of their eggs, chasing away all the other males and protecting the future offspring. But the females don't participate in this process. They usually meet the males only for mating. And since the females are larger than the males, they can easily get rid of them after fertilization. Thus, male mola mula have to raise their offspring on their own. They gather in huge schools, hundreds of thousands of individuals. However, none of them can boast of having a partner. Sometimes, scientists find a pair of malala swimming together, but they quickly break up and the fish return to their school. Scientists assume that such a lifestyle is due to the habits of predators. If the mola mula were swimming in pairs, they'd be an easy target for predators. Schools confuse predators, making it harder for them to pick off the prey. Perhaps that's why the mola mula live like this. But wouldn't you agree that they're still pretty lucky? At least they have each other. And what if you're just born alone? Look at this fish. Its name is handa. You probably haven't heard of it before, but it's not rare. It's just that this fish lives at a depth of 2,700 meters. Who would have thought anything could live down there? Sunlight doesn't reach these depths. There's crushing pressure and almost no oxygen. But handa adapted to such conditions. It swims perfectly in the dark and can breathe even in low oxygen concentrations. But handa has another problem. The fish is photophobic. That is, it's afraid of light. What if a beam of sunlight suddenly hits it? That's why handa spends its whole life in complete darkness, deep in the ocean. Its body is like a sack. It can contract, making itself smaller. Then the fish hides in a crevice between rocks or on the seabed. Handa can also expand. In this form, it's easier for the fish to swim. This is how handa spends its whole life, hunting, looking for food, and hiding from imaginary enemies. Yeah, it sounds sad, but there's nothing we can do about it. Here's another fish that definitely shouldn't have come to the surface. Its name is Regalicus glen, but you can just call it the royal fish. If this fish could talk, it would probably ask not to call it that way. But that's exactly what it's called. By the way, this is the only known species of this genus, so there's no chance it'll have company. What kind of fish is this? Looking at it, you can hardly believe it's real. It looks more like some kind of alien. The royal fish has no scales. It also lacks pectoral and pelvic fins. Instead of them, there's just a bunch of filaments. The royal fish got its name because it has a crown on its head. Well, it's actually an adipose fin covered with bony plates. The royal fish has another odd feature. It can only swim vertically. Moreover, it always moves upward. It feeds on plankton, which it filters out of the water column. Once the royal fish gets close enough to the surface, it turns over, then goes down a little deeper and begins to rise again. The cycle repeats over and over. That's how the fish spends its whole life. But the most amazing thing is that the royal fish can dive to a depth of 2,200 meters. The fish stays at these depths for several months, maybe even years. And it's there, far from the sun's rays, that it feels comfortable. So let it be. We don't need this weird fish anyway. What do you think? Is it really weird, or is it just special? Write your thoughts in the comments. And that's all for now. See you soon. Bye.